I always thought my life was perfect. My room was a model of order and organization. The walls were painted in a neutral tone. The furniture was meticulously arranged, and every object had its place. The bed was always made with crisp white linens. Each morning began with a precise ritual: sunlight streaming through the window, the alarm clock softly ringing, and me rising to start the day with the same routine. It was a life free of surprises, free of variations. However, I began to notice small discrepancies. One day, I noticed that a book on the shelf seemed to have moved. Another morning, one of the pictures on the wall was slightly tilted. At first, I thought I was just tired or distracted, but these small changes began to accumulate, and an uncomfortable feeling began to settle in. The flashes of light I saw began to intensify. They would appear out of nowhere, as if someone were flicking a flashlight in my field of vision. These flashes were accompanied by strange sounds, like indistinct murmurs that I couldn't identify. The room, once a sanctuary of calm, became a place of constant unease. Shadows on the walls began to move, creating strange shapes that seemed to watch me. I tried to ignore these signs, believing they were just stress or fatigue. However, the feeling of being watched intensified. One night, I clearly saw a silhouette in the corner of the room. Its presence was oppressive and seemed to carry a sense of malevolence. I tried turning on the lights and making noise to scare it away, but nothing worked. The silhouette remained, as if it were constantly observing me. Fear took over me. I began to avoid spending too much time in the room, but it didn't help. The shadowy figures became more real and aggressive. I saw these figures moving across the walls, as if they were trying to communicate with me. Every time I closed my eyes, the room seemed to grow darker and more oppressive. Nightmares became frequent. In my dreams, I was trapped in an endless maze of dark corridors and shadowy figures. The panic I felt in the dream seemed to manifest in reality. I would wake up with a racing heart, sweating, and with the feeling that something was about to catch me. I decided to make a small change in the room, moving the chair to the other side of the desk. When I adjusted the mirror on the wall, I saw something that shouldn't have been there. A message written in a language I didn't recognize, covered by a mist that seemed to form and disappear. Panic set in. I was starting to question if the mirror was showing me something that wasn't real. Reality seemed to be distorting. Time and space began to feel flexible. The shadowy figures became more defined, and their intentions seemed clearer, almost as if they were trying to communicate with me. I started hearing sounds I couldn't identify: whispers from outside the room, knocks on the walls, and the sound of something moving. I felt like I was in a constant state of vigilance, unable to discern what was real and what wasn't. Desperation took over me. I began to watch every corner of the room, searching for any sign of something, anything that could give me an answer. The feeling of being watched never went away, and reality seemed to unravel around me. The shadowy figures became more aggressive, and I felt as if I was being pulled into them. In a moment of absolute desperation, I began screaming for help. However, the sound seemed to disappear before reaching anywhere. I found myself completely isolated, as if the room were closing in around me. The sensation of being trapped and without escape was overwhelming. Each day seemed to become a repetition of the previous one, but with a growing sense of oppression and dread. Small changes in the room became more noticeable. Objects began to disappear and reappear in different places. Sometimes I found broken items that I didn't remember damaging. Finally, in a moment of devastating clarity, I realized that what I was experiencing wasn't real. The room, the figures, the flashes, all were projections of my disturbed mind. The perfect room was actually a confinement cell. I had been taken to this environment as part of my treatment, and all my perception of reality had been distorted by my mental condition. The light flashes, the shadowy figures, and the messages were hallucinations. The room I had seen as a prison was actually a creation of my desperate mind. The truth was a painful and terrifying revelation. I was trapped in a mental institution, and everything I had experienced was an illusion created by my schizophrenia. I was in a state of complete disconnection from reality. The whispers and shadows were hallucinations, and the feeling of being watched was a manifestation of my disturbed mind. The desperation I had experienced was merely a reflection of my fractured psyche, unable to accept the truth of my situation. The room I had perceived as a prison was, in fact, a creation of my desperate mind. The painful and terrifying truth revealed itself. I was confined in a mental institution, and everything I had experienced was an illusion brought on by my schizophrenia. The stark reality of my confinement was more terrifying than any hallucination, leaving me to grapple with the harsh truth of my existence.